Good morning, everybody. I hope that you've had a great conference to this point. I'm Pam. I work in the PDE Office for Safe Schools as a consultant. I've been there almost 10 years, not in that office, but with PDE. In a past life, I was an assistant superintendent of schools. I worked in the area of curriculum, which I absolutely love. Prior to that, I was a special ed supervisor and a special ed teacher. I'm a grandmother, I'm a wife. I have a grandson who is 12, he has Down syndrome. I have a beautiful daughter, 1. That's it, that's all God gave me was 1. So without boring you about me, I'd like to just start to talk a little bit about the career-ready skills. And you're gonna see that these skills relate to pretty much everything when you think about teaching and learning. Okay, so what are they? Here are our goals. Hopefully when you walk out the door, you will be able to know what the career-ready skills are. When you see that continuum, which you're going to probably see a lot of because we're getting ready to roll everything out, you'll say, yeah, I know what that is. It is I should stress it's a continuum. They are not standards, but they look like standards, only we made them prettier. When I was teaching, everything I did was color-coded, and so I have to have color in my life. Okay, so then we're going to talk a little bit about why these skills are so important when it comes to employment and in life. And then we're going to create an activity that integrates these career-ready skills into your environment. But before I go any further, I always like to know who I'm talking to. So let me see here. I have to walk over here because I can't go to the light because of the recording. So can you please tell me who you are? Classroom teachers. Welcome. Primary. Intermediate. Secondary. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Administrators. Thank you for coming, all of you. School counselors. Yeah, all right. Look at that presence. We have a presence in here. School psychologists, anybody? Parents. Yay, parents! Let's give it up for the parents. Woohoo! All right, fantastic. Did I miss anybody? I always miss somebody, yes.
Specials teachers.
All right, welcome. All right, thank you so much. All right, so let's go on. You know, one of the things we always ask kids is, what do you want to be? Well, they don't know. I mean, they think they want to be football players or basketball players or ballerinas or dancers or models. But the reality is that it's a work in progress for our kids. So it's a great question to ask. When I asked my grandson what he wanted to be, he told me he wanted to be a doctor. I don't think with Down syndrome he's going to be a doctor. I wouldn't want to go to him. But he might be able to work in a doctor's office, right? So we just have to try and work with our kids to help them decide what they like. Okay, what are these skills? Well, you have the continuums. Hopefully everybody has one. And they are learning progressions that go from pre-KK in the grade bands, grades 1 through 5, 6 to 8, and 9 through 12. We have, in Pennsylvania, we've established 3 big buckets or domains. Some places have 5, but we did 3. So we have self-awareness and self-management, we have establish and maintaining relationships, and we have social problem-solving skills. So those are your big domains. If you are looking at that color, really pretty, colorful continuum, on the left are the 3 big domains. And you can see them there. And then across, as you work across, you would see that continuum of skills in progression. If you work down, you're going to look at your grade level band and all the skills. Okay? All right. So why do we want career-ready skills? Well, how did Pennsylvania come up with that? You know, because really, when you think about these skills and you look at those descriptors, it's social emotional learning. It is. However, we know that our employers, from big industries to private employers, are telling us when they hire someone, they usually come with most of the technical skills and academic skills. But the thing that they are challenged to work with them on are those employability skills. They're sometimes called soft skills. We like to think of them as essential skills. They can't teach that. They can't teach people how to communicate with each other, how to be empathetic, how to be able to set goals, accept constructive criticism. All of those things that we know are clearly important in the workplace. Just thinking about this. Have you ever worked with someone who's inflexible? Ooh. It's very challenging. How do you teach somebody to be flexible? You got to work on it. Got to work on it from the time kids start to identify who they are. Okay. And then we have research to support the fact that children using these skills on a regular and sustained basis are going to have better attendance. There's going to be less bullying. There's going to be a gain, which I'll talk about, an academic gain for kids. Why? Because they come to school and they're engaged. And for the teachers, wow, less behavior problems, right? Less mental health referrals. Just so many things that are just so critical for our kids and for our own wellness. So let's take a look at the domains. First one is self-awareness and self-management. Take a look at the icons. We'll be using those over and over again. We still have a lot of work to do at PD with these skills. And basically, it's coping skills, understanding your preferences and your needs and your wants, and expressing those in a positive way. Okay? We have social problem-solving skills. So think about any community of learners. Think about the workplace. Think about the family. You ever have two kids? You know, I was on a plane coming back from California, and there was a family. There was a mother and a father. They were younger. They had 4 little girls in steps, okay? And they were deplaning. We were behind them. And the one little girl she was like a middle girl. There was the littlest one, then the next one. And they were engaged in some not so positive interactions, to the fact where the one little girl grabbed the kid by the chin, pushed her down in the row, you know, because I think they had something they were fighting over. And the mother just looked on and said, "What happened?" She saw it. You know, I don't know if I would have taken that moment to take care of that, because people were trying to get off the plane, but I got to tell you, they never did. As far as I could see, they just moved on. So I'm echoing. I'm not a fan of the echo. So these skills are just a piece. And then how to establish and maintain relationships. One of the things that's really hard for my grandson, because he's an only child, his mother was an only child, I'm an only child, don't ask me why, is how to make friends, how to keep friends. You know, what are good things? Do you walk up and pinch somebody because you want to be their friend? Well, when he was really little, he thought that was a great idea. We didn't think it was so good. But it's so important to have the skills that I'm talking about. And when you think about it, teaching and learning is a social process. Every interaction we have with a child is social in many ways. Okay, so here's our grade bands. Ooh. These skills, if you look at the pre-K grade band, you're going to notice that the Office for Early Learning, Early Childhood Learning and Development, OCDL, has social emotional learning skills. They're exactly the same as the pre-KK. We had lots of folks on the committee. They're still working. And we decided, why would we give folks more skills when the ones they had were great? So they are those skills. We also align to the career education and work skills. We did a lot of aligning. We did a lot of crosswalks. We did all of the academic skills. And we did math, science, and technology practices, those 12 practices. So you'll be able to see those. They're in our introductory document that I'll talk a little bit about, that I didn't bring because it's pretty long. So what you have on your tables is you have a handout from the National Network of Business and Industry. It's called Common Employability Skills. And it says they are the skills all employees need no matter where they work. Okay? So when you go, I know I'm asking you to move from one copy to another, but if you go back to that continuum and those 3 big buckets of establishing and maintaining relationships, etc., underneath you will see the aligned employability skills in those domains. Our team took a long time to do the alignments. So they're on the left, on that colored piece, and you can take a look at them. But that's where they came from. And it's important, we use these skills because we had big businesses like Walmart, and we had also private businesses and corporations and foundations that composed these skills. And we felt that that was important because it represented just about every employer that you could think about. Okay? Bless you. Bless you. Okay. There they are. Now, my presentation is online, and the link to those employability skills, if you want to put it in a virtual file somewhere, that's a live link. So you can share this out electronically. And there they are. You can see there are personal skills, people skills, applied knowledge, and workplace skills. So things like integrity, things like teamwork, respect, adaptation, professionalism. These are the skills. If you go back to the continuum and you look at the 9 through 12 band, understanding in the continuum that we expect students to know and be able to do these skills by the end of the band. So grade 12, if you go down and you look at those skills on that continuum, you're going to find someone who is very employable if they've established those skills. That's pretty critical. So these are not an add-on. These are not really soft skills. PDE considers them essential skills, employability skills. And there they are. Wouldn't you want someone that could solve problems and make good decisions, that had some critical thinking, that was able to work in a team, that was respectful of others, that occasionally took initiative, that was honest, they had integrity? Wow. I don't know if you've ever encountered a really, someone who had lost the zest for their employment, whatever that might be, in some service industry. It is an uncomfortable experience, to the place where you think, wow, maybe you need to reconsider what you're doing. Okay. As I said, we did a lot of aligning. So we have an introductory document, and the introductory document would be something that if you were working with a school board, or you were working with parents, all the research that supports these career-ready skills is there, plus all of these alignments, and also existing initiatives in Pennsylvania that support the career-ready skills. But because we're asking our professionals to work under this framework, we felt it was critical to do this alignment. As I mentioned, we align to almost every academic skill, every academic standard. Okay, so why? Well, I keep telling you why. I'm trying to explain why PD considers these so important. But think about when you went to school, unless you're 20, and then or 21, and then this doesn't really apply so much. But when you went to school, you had to be able to memorize, you had to be able to have good penmanship, you had to be able to, in math, recognize patterns, work under pressure. It was more rote than it is today. And in reading, language arts, spelling and grammar, which are still important, good vocabulary skills, the ability to read materials, but typically, at least in the early grades, what you were looking for was factual knowledge, right? You weren't making so many connections. I know I wasn't. Dick and Jane just didn't, And the ability to write and complete sentences. But look now at what we're asking kids to do. Look at our math, creative problem solving. And oftentimes, and what parents, and I almost got crucified for this when I was working in curriculum, because we went from Saxon math to a really more process-driven math. We actually had a guidebook for parents that we put together, and we did classes, but nobody was happy. And I understand, because they had a hard time grasping that shift. But look at the difference in what we're asking kids to do now. In math, oftentimes kids are solving problems together. They're solving their problem and then they're sharing their answers or their process. Or they're doing them together, step by step. And then in language arts, we're asking kids to communicate across multiple media, think and ask thoughtful questions, be able to debate why you feel an issue is important or whatever. So here is what I was referring to earlier on, in the fact that these career-ready skills, which are social-emotional learning skills, when you have students that are able to engage in practicing and using these skills on a regular and sustained basis, you will see, and this is solid research from CASEL. By the way, Pennsylvania has been working with CASEL from the very beginning. CASEL is a collaborative for academic and social-emotional learning. They're based in Chicago. They are a nonprofit agency. They're huge. They have years and years of experience in working in social emotional learning. You'll see an 11 to 13% increase in academic performance. Those of you that are still really worried about test scores, and even though we've changed our measures, I guess they're still important. And you'll also see a 10% decline in emotional distresses, kids coming to school with problems in conduct and mental health issues. Now, are we going to solve everyone's mental health issues? No, there are some kids, God bless them, that are beyond our help. But for the most part, these skills will work with kids in your schools to help them be more academically engaged and to feel comfortable and safe in school and accepted, which is what happens to help to reduce those conduct problems and those emotional distress problems. I am going to throw some research at you, but it's important. Our teachers tell us that a bigger focus on social emotional learning would improve workforce development. They believe that. And again, all these links are live if you want to go and take a look for yourself. The Association for Career and Tech Ed says that out of all the skills, those employability skills, as Pennsylvania calls them, like collaboration and flexibility and problem solving, all those things are really critical to someone not only getting a job, but keeping a job. Okay. More, if I didn't convince you yet, our US government also believes that employability skills are super important. They also have a framework that we looked at and that we borrowed some things from, but we really liked the framework that we're using, and we really liked the National Network of Business and Industries employability skills. So PDE went with those. 7 in 10 employers report that they seek employees that have strong teamwork and problem solving and all those good things. Well, sure. Who wants to take time to teach? And how do you do that? How do you do that? Okay, we have some things in place at PDE in Pennsylvania that really do support these career-ready skills. Obviously, our school code supports those skills and the academic standards. As I mentioned earlier, our early learning standards are actually the pre-KK band. Does anybody know what WIOA is? WIOA, let me just look back here. WIOA? I know, the first time we had someone that worked with us on all of the stuff from the Department of Labor and Industry. Thank goodness, because I had no idea what WIOA was or is, or I do now, but it is the governor's ability to make changes in the workforce system. Okay. And I was just to the governor's workforce development board. It was really interesting to watch all these different businesses come together for common purposes, for employment. We have something called Employment First, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, having the history I have working with special needs folks, to think about that untapped resource of special needs folks and working with them. Almost every municipality has a local career advisory committee that works to look at how to support the workforce and to bring jobs into their community. And as I mentioned earlier, the governor, this is his way of being able to keep a handle on what's happening in Pennsylvania in the area of commerce and work. And then we have our state performance plan for special needs folks. That transitioning, you know, and what happens to special needs folks at about 14. What do you want to be? What are your preferences? What do you like? What should we expose you to? Thank goodness now we have Future Ready PA, where we're starting to expose kids to thinking about work at an early age. It's a pain, I guess, to gather the evidence, but we're doing our kids a great favor by doing this for them. And many schools have already been doing this. It's just that evidence piece that is required as a mandate that may not have been there before. So here's the continuum, and I've already talked to you about it. This is just one of the domains, and you can see on that left side those related employability skills. If you work straight down a grade band, you're going to see all the skills that we expect kids to be able to do by the end of the grade band. But if you work across, you'll see the progression of skills. So, you've got all this good stuff, all this great information. What's PD going to do to help you integrate this? And PDE really is saying integrate, don't separate. So instead of maybe second step, which is really a good program that is done maybe once a week, we're asking our teachers and our educators, our professionals, to think more globally about how these can be integrated into lessons, how they can be integrated into exchanges on a playground, etc., you know, lunchroom, standing out in hallways. And with PBS, how many of you are already doing a lot of this? Sure. My husband is a principal in Williamsport in an intermediate school, which is grades 4 through 6. He has about 600 kids. It's a PBS school. And when he saw the framework, when he saw the continuum, he was like, oh, this is just a plan. It's more planned. It's more intentional. These skills, we're working with them with kids, but this helps to organize those skills. It's intentional. So as I talked to you before, we have lots of goodies that we have ready to share, and we have more coming. We have an introductory document that situates the career-ready skills. It looks at them through the lens of employment and adult life, connects, as I said, to existing state initiatives, and then all the alignments. And those are only 2 that are listed there. We're also working on rollout webinars right now. We have our first Act 48 course. The draft is written. It'll live on the SAS portal. There'll be 2. There'll be 2 Act 48 courses. There'll also be a PIL course. The Toolkit was just approved, yay, this week, and it will be posted on the Office for Safe Schools web page. All this stuff, it will live there. It will also live on SAS. And I also wanted to mention that in January of 2019, PDE passed approval for a social emotional learning and mental health certificate endorsement that you can get on your certificate. And Bloomsburg University is the university that is working on these courses. Courses will be ready to take by 2020. if you would like to have a 12-credit endorsement on your certificate, regardless of whether it's level 1, level 2, you can do that. I'm sure other Pennsylvania universities will follow, but Bloomsburg is the one that brought this endorsement forward. It's 12 credits, 4 courses, and then you're endorsed on your certificate in the area of social emotional learning and mental health. Yes?
And will that be available online?
That's the link to it right there.
No, I mean, is it online?
I'm pretty sure they will be, yes.
The question was, will it be available online?
Right.
Yes.
And the answer is, I'm working with the person for Bloomsburg, and it's my understanding they will be available online.
And we're looking at 2020.
Spring of 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. But if you want to know more, and does anybody else have a question? I don't want to ignore anybody. Okay. You're fine. Okay, so what's in the toolkit? Well, there's an introduction. There's a model for for LEAs that can look at existing initiatives within their educational entity and then determine how the career ready skills will look. We walk you through, there's a model to do that for districts. And then for professionals, there's an assessment that can be taken through the American Institute of Researchers, Great Teachers and Learners is the website. There's an assessment in social emotional learning that you can take online. You have to create a login and password, but it saves it for you, and then you can go back and look and see where you're strong and where you need more work in the area of working with kids in social emotional learning. It's really a cool resource. We also, as I said, PDE has taken a stance that this is that learning is a social process, and that these social emotional learning skills, as we're calling them, career ready skills, should be integrated into all parts of your school environment and school day. And so we have those resources for teachers as well, for professionals. Okay. We also have a page for family engagement, for how to engage family. We know that it's really important that we bring our families into this. The first teaching and learning in the area of social emotional learning happens at birth and continues. And we know that, and that's super important. So you have a toolkit sample. I did leave them on the table for you. So I want to kind of walk you through what PD did in the area of the toolkit and working with kids. So on the far left, where it says social problem solving skills, grades 9 through 12, that is the career ready skill. But when we were working with our focus groups, folks would say to us, oh, that's really nice, but what's that look like in a classroom? What is that? What's it look like? So we worked again with many groups. We worked with a lot of groups to come up with performance indicators that would help professionals say, is this child able to model integrity? Do they have some sort of leadership skills? And are those skills ethical? Can they look at individual perspectives and how that might affect someone's decisions? And can they look at their decisions and others in the area of civic roles and responsibilities? So then we have some practices that all adults can do. That's your third row. And then some more specific or intentional teaching strategies that you can use. We have these for every grade band, for every skill. The toolkit is like 66 pages. It's meant to live online. So once we get this online, which I'm hoping won't take too long, I'm hoping by the end of the month, you should be able to get in and click on the skill and grade level band that you want to look at and print out what you want to look at, so you don't have to work through all of it.
I just have a question.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I realize if you enhance, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. I realize you can promote coming to school if you teach children how to, cope and all that kind of stuff, but is there an actual curriculum guide as to how to increase attendance in your school, K through 12? Does it actually focus on that in the toolkit? Like how to improve attendance directly?
No.
No, so it's all improving all these other things?
It's all improving these skills.
And there's nothing like with the parent, to engaging a parent or how you?
For attendance?
Yes.
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
You're welcome. However, that doesn't mean to say that down the road something won't be created, because we have yet to look at MTSSs, multi-tiered systems of support, equity, which we know is really important. So right now we felt it was important to get the general skills out with some strategies, and we expect our professionals to add to this list for us.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to say that that's not in the future, but it took us 4 years to get this
And
far.
I appreciate all this. And I went to educators in the workplace for
yeah.
a week, and one of the biggest problems was attendance. And maintaining, like staying with your career. And so I wanted to kind of in the middle school start to teach those kind of things.
Okay.
So thank you.
So that doesn't mean in your lesson planning that you can't do that on your own. One of the things I did before this was I worked on the truancy toolkit. I revised it. So you're going to have my contact information. I might be able to really help you with this.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, Mary.
Good morning, everyone. I work very closely with Pam Emery in the Office for Safe Schools. I'm very honored to do so, and I work in school climate and bullying prevention. But I would say, too, as you all know, that when these skills increase, the climate improves of the school as well. When the climate's better, you want to be there. I mean, think of your workplace. If it's a bad climate, you really are calling off sick today. But, when it's a place of welcoming and acceptance and teamwork and responsibility, and somebody cares you've come in the door, you feel more motivated to go there. So there's plenty of research to say that all of this work improves school climate, which is closely linked with attendance. So,
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I understand that these skills are harder, maybe for some of you to think about, because for as long as I can remember, when I was in a classroom, when I was supervising teachers and getting into classrooms and doing observations and conferencing with teachers and rolling out new curriculum, everything was academics. We've been beaten up with academics, and believe me, I understand how they affect someone's future. I mean, I never thought that I would be here speaking to you today when I was 18. So education is just super important. But these skills, these are things that families used to teach, that many families still work toward, but we also have families that are struggling just to put food on the table. We have folks that have some challenges as far as maybe an addiction. It's more than just, let's be nice. Okay, I'm tired of talking. I need a drink of water. So what I would like you to do is find a partner, and I'm going to give you about 8 minutes, maybe 6 to 8, I'll say 6, we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, I'll have an unruly tribe on my hands. But I want you to turn to a partner or partners, that's why I wanted you at tables, to talk about where you are. If you're a PBS school, where are you with PBS? How do you envision this fitting into your existing framework, whether you are PBS, whether you are not, maybe you're something else. Look at the framework, think about how that could fit this whole continuum of skills, how it can be integrated. One of the things we also have in a toolkit are 10 practices that you can start to do right away. And we have videos to show you what they look like. And it's not hard. It's like thinking about your discipline and maybe doing a tiny shift in discipline. Thinking about the way you communicate with kids, the messages that you're sending. Even when you're not trying to send a message, maybe you just have a migraine that day. We're human beings. We have our good and bad points. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to come up with some sort of a plan for your reality in your school as to how you might integrate one of those skills or all of those skills. All right, I'm going to give you 6 minutes starting now. Please find a partner or partners. Thank you. Come back. Please come back. Come back to me. Oh, I didn't even have to count down. You guys are good. Really good. Thank you so much. All right, if I can have your full attention. I'm going to count. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Perfect. So, I'm still very thirsty and tired of talking, so I would really appreciate having some folks share what they came up with. And I have no problem putting people on the hot seat for that.
These girls are awesome.
These girls are awesome. We're going to start right here with these ladies.
Thank you, Lynn. Oh, good. So we were talking about how important these skills are and how they need to be embedded, especially when we live in a world of increased technology all of the time. So
Yes.
many of these skills are actually counterproductive to what some of our push is. So we have to be really mindful while doing that. And we were also thinking about the connection between our career readiness skills and standards that are coming out and how this directly aligns with them as well.
Good.
And talking about how it should be a holistic approach, not just through our guidance counselors, but in the classroom each day.
Holistic approach is the best way for kids
To learn.
to
and
learn
be able to
anything. If you think about, how many of you are parents in here? Good. If you think about working with your toddler, potty training, anybody? Did they get that on the first try? Did they get that one day a week for 10 minutes? No. It was integrated. You talked about it. Maybe you had books about it. Maybe you sang songs about it. Maybe you saw it in your dreams and your nightmares. But eventually those kids were potty trained. It's no different with these skills. Kids need great experiences. They need repetition. They need to know what's expected of them. You're going to have to model these skills for them and then ask them to show you what that looks like for them.
I'm just going to share one example that I've used in kindergarten. I was just talking to my friend who teaches 5th and how the continuum and what it could look like. So in kindergarten, I have a sign up at our morning meeting rug, and it says, "My partner and I think." So anytime I do a think, pair, share, and they turn and discuss with their shoulder partner, when they come back to share out their answer, I ask them, I point to the prompt. I had to model it heavily in the beginning because they're 5. But they say, "My partner and I think." And without even, of course I modeled it and explicitly taught it in the beginning, but without them even knowing, I am teaching them to share out responsibility And of course, I'm strategically pairing my children so that, because my super high achievers, and I have some very high achievers in my class, aren't always in the leadership role, because for them to reach their absolute optimal potential, they need to be able to sometimes back up and allow someone else to shine, right? So I was thinking, if I had that anchor chart and I went back to my principal and talked to her, she has seen me utilize it and she loves it, but that there was a continuum throughout each grade. By the time they got to 5th, the child with the GIEP would have hopefully no issue working with a child that may have an IEP and sharing out and finding their own strengths within that group.
Right, right. Great, fantastic. All right, thank you for that. May I have someone else? What were some of your thoughts? Right here.
This is
Right here.
on to the previous comment? Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment just about the whole career readiness standards and how you could sell to a high school PBIS through these career standards, that lots of times the high schools say, and the older kids, even some in middle school administration will say, they're just too, that's
Too frilly, touchy.
Yeah, it's for the younger kids, it's for the younger kids.
Okay.
But you can, this whole career idea,
Yes.
you can sell PBIS to middle schools and high schools because they can reinforce these behaviors in the high schools and teach them career readiness skills. So I think it's a great link.
Good.
just
Well, you
wanted to
know, in
make a comment.
2015, we had a convening of different business agencies, and this is the thing that came, this is one of the large pieces. We need help finding folks that have these employability skills. What are schools doing? That was 2015. So here we are in 2019. Ta-da, right?
Good job.
And it's just the beginning. All right, this gentleman here. Sir?
So don't put it right next to my mouth because I'm also loud. I got it. Sorry, the warning I got was the microphone makes everything really loud, and
Well, if I can
teachers
do
are
it,
used to
you
just
can do
being
it.
loud. So the young lady next to me and myself, we're both part of the initial PBIS committee at our school, and we're both also now, we spend all of our day doing vocational training and programming for
Nice.
the school that we work at. Everybody else at the table is in counseling, so they all end up working a lot with the social emotional side of the training in their different schools. We all kind of mentioned how we're all doing the social emotional training in our, I don't know where to hold this to stop the feedback, sorry. We're all doing the social emotional learning piece. The problem that it seemed like everybody was bringing up was that we all work at different levels in different school districts and carry over from one school to the next or going from one level to the next, and kind of aligning everything and getting those articles that we all now know we have to have and have to have accumulated for the end of the year. Systematically, a systematic approach doesn't really exist to getting everything together, and what one group is counting isn't being counted by another, and kind of getting that all to fit together is the problem that we really seem to be encountering.
So you need to have a conversation with your administration so that, because every time you do something, every time you work with a child, everything you do is important, and time is important. So you cannot waste your time doing A, B, or C while someone with just the very best of intentions at another level is doing D, E, and F, and there's no connection. So what you need to do is, I don't know who your curriculum person is or whoever, or an administrator, you need to talk to them and say, this is good work, we believe in what we're doing, but we're wasting time because there's no communication. And you know, it takes a long time to get communication from one level, one grade to the next. Grade level teams are great, but they're just at that grade level. So you need to find some sort of a vehicle,
no good place to
whether
put
it's
the
whether it's something that you do in the morning before you see kids, maybe once every 4 to 6 weeks, so that you can compare, you can start to align your process. And this is so new that it's not going to be a waste of time, because once you have that process in place, then everybody understands what everybody else is doing. So that's my suggestion. Whether that would work for you or not, I would hope that you could find a way to do that?
Well, I'm in a little different situation, I think, everybody else at the table, because I'm the administrator being put in charge of this as of this year.
So you have the golden key.
No, but
Well, you
I'm
have
the
a
one
bigger,
being told
you
I
have
have
a
to
bigger
fix
key
it.
than they have, right?
I do,
Okay. But, so do you understand what I'm saying there?
Oh, I understand
You
exactly
need-
what you're
you know,
saying. I
you
said
need
the same
to-
thing to the people above me. I said, look, if you want this to be fixed, you need to let me be the supervisor in charge of this person, and this person who I don't currently supervise, so that it can be communicated clearly and we're not repeating the same. Yes, I understand what you were saying, and I told the people above me at what would be the district level the same exact thing, that as a building level administrator, I need to be in charge of people in different buildings to align
Oh,
what
but then
everybody's doing
that's
and make all of that happen.
release time and, I don't know. But just to start with a meeting with that administrator that you're talking to, and maybe a couple of representatives to show some examples of what the disconnects are, it might be really helpful. It might be a better selling point, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to kind of tie in, because I work with him also, talking with our counselors and stuff, we have the information, but it's like the work center might have this this data, and it's not being accumulated into one area.
Okay.
So then the counselors are running around trying to find the information, because I know it's there, but
Do you guys have a
who
data
has it?
warehouse of some sort where you're housing all your data? A local data warehouse of some sort?
We have, each kid has a portfolio that all their data is supposed to go into.
Okay.
But it's not been consistently done, so
Okay.
that's what we're kind of working on.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you have process problems. You guys are going to have to work that out, and I'm going to move along. Ma'am?
No, I was just going to add to that as well, that even as a district counseling facility, we're all working really hard to
Yes.
get the system set up. But the other side of this is sometimes the technology involved in creating the portfolios and doing all that. You're asking kindergarten teachers, if you're starting it that early, to create something for kids who aren't necessarily ready to go there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, do you create it as a counselor and have the housing facility and then transfer all this information from from that point all the way through middle school and then high school?
I
You know
got
what
it.
I'm saying?
So PD might be able to help you with some of that. Anybody else? Right here, this gentleman in the green tie.
Do I have to use the mic? 'Cause I'm very-
No, but if you have to, we're being recorded, so
All right.
just hold it.
I was talking to Emily here, and one of the things that I talked about in the secondary level, little things you could do to try and promote more of the social skills and team building. I was very much a traditional rows and columns kind of teacher, and a couple of years ago I went to like the paired desk because turn and talk, shoulder partners and all. And what I've recently done the last 2 years, and I find more effective, is I do groups of 3 with my desks. And if you have tables in a room, that's even better. But I'll put 2 desks together facing each other and add a third one in. And I do a lot of small group, discussion. They'll do small projects and stuff like that throughout the year. So one of the first things we did this year, as we've been implementing PBS and trying to promote more the idea of skills, not just content, is in addition to just doing, the normal stuff on the first day with, well, here's your syllabus and all that, I had them do the Marshmallow Challenge. And if anyone's familiar with the Marshmallow Challenge, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, if you go to TED Ed and you look up the TED video on Marshmallow Challenge, basically what you do is you give a group, so for me it's the 3 kids that I let them choose to sit together. And with 9th graders, you never know how that's going to go, but they're going to have to work and partner together. So you choose a friend, but they're not the best partner. Better learn that now than later on. And what you did is and I thought it'd be a lot more cost prohibitive than it was in time, planning, but it really wasn't. It went pretty quick and pretty cheaply. You give every group, 20 pieces of uncooked pasta. You give them a yard of tape, you give them a yard of string, and you give them a marshmallow. And the plan is they have, I think it's 17 or 18 minutes, you have to look up exactly what it was. They have to piece together and create a freestanding structure, so you can't hold it up, it can't be connected to the ceiling, whatever, and the marshmallow must go on top. So the marshmallow must be intact, it can't be used to connect things together. The tape can be, the string can be, the 20 pieces of uncooked pasta, spaghetti can be, and they could use as much or as little as materials as they want. The goal is to have a freestanding structure. So if you have a freestanding structure with Marshmallow on top, your team met the challenge. And then I say whoever has the highest, you get an extra reward, which is a bunch of marshmallows that they could eat. Follow whatever your school's rules are with food in the classroom, et cetera. But the funny part is they do this with like CEOs at like leadership conferences, and the people that do the best with it are kindergarten students, and the people that do the worst with it are like CEOs and so forth. And my honors kids traditionally do the worst because they try to make the tall structure. They don't want to work together. They're too focused or afraid of failure and all that sort of stuff. And one of my lower level classes this past semester, so like I end up having about 10 groups in a room because about 30 kids to a class. And I had 7 freestanding structures in one of my lower level classes this past semester, and my honors class I had none. And that was the most successful I ever had. And some of them I was showing some of the pictures here to Emily, so if you want to see some pictures, stop by, I'll show you, and I have them on my Twitter account and all that if you want. But they had some like crazy creative structure. So when you're talking about 21st century skills, the collaboration, the communication, they learned a lot from that. And you could do that at the beginning of the year thing, and as we get to the end of the year, we talk about kids don't want to do a whole lot, and sometimes depending on when your finals and all are, you may have some days afterwards. You could do this, if you didn't do it at the beginning of the year, you could do this one day, show them the TED video where they kind of learn what their mistakes were, and then the next day have them do it again. And when you buy just a plain thing, I got a big pack of like spaghetti, and I'm like, I don't know how many I'll get out of this. I was able to do all that for like $3, and then some masking tape laying around, some string or twine. You can imagine how cheap that is, and a bag of marshmallows. And the kids really like it, and they learn a lot of skills. And I feel like I did that this year for both my semesters with block scheduling. And there's little projects and their discussions, anecdotal data, but seemed like they were much better this year. And their grades actually were better on some of those things as well. So something to try low level, just kind of dip your toe in.
Cool. So David, the challenge for you then is to think about your marshmallow challenge and how you can do little things like that all the time with your kids. For instance, let's take a 5th grade math class, and let's take division, and let's think about giving 2 or 3 kids a division problem on one side of the room and the same problem to some kids on the other side of the room, asking them to solve that problem and then come together to compare their process. So you have some choices. You can think about putting kids in desks and giving them some division problems to solve. Or you can put them in small groups, give them each the same, give those small groups a set of the same problems or a same problem, and then bring them together to share their process. Which one would you rather do? I know which one I'd rather do. And if you structure it well enough, you're not going to have behaviors. You can be strategic about how you structure your groups. But, learning should be a fun process. Can't be all the time. But I'm going to tell you from somebody who worked in the area of social studies in high school that was asked to look up the vocabulary words, read the chapter section, answer the questions, prepare for a quiz, and do the same thing again and again and again. And I'm married to an ex-social studies teacher. My social studies skills, my skills are poor because I learned how to define words, I learned how to search for facts, and I learned what was going to be on the test. That's it. History for me wasn't connected. I didn't learn about the person George Washington was or any of that interesting stuff, Did they have pets? Did they, what did they do in their off time? How did they think? Where did they like to go? Anything like that. Nothing made those folks human for me. They were just vocabulary words and chapters and all that stuff. So, sir.
If I could, just one thing to tack on. As a social studies teacher, I'm good. I'm sure they could hear me.
But they can't get it.
Oh, okay, can't get it. As a social studies teacher, and another thing you do, like with projects, if you do any type of writing projects, as we used to do, and we still do, like a World War I writing project, and basically you're like a soldier in World War I writing home about what the trenches are like. What I did to try and make it more social emotional and trying to add in more of the group elements to it, which fits with 21st century skills, is now they're in a group. And the whole first day is figuring out, okay, what's your character's name? Who are you writing to? How are you doing this? And then their letters have to be connected to each other. So who's writing the first letter? Who's writing the next letter? They have to sound like they're talking about common things. And then the nice part was one student didn't have to write about everything, every aspect of the war in this incredibly long letter. They were able to do that. And then you could add in creativity, where I said to them, well, if you want to do sketches instead, because there's a lot of trench art that was done in the war, you know, and they had to come with me and talk to me, they could do that. If they want to do poetry, they could do that. And I had some kids that, the one student painted this amazing painting that I was like blown away by. And she was able to show her knowledge of the war as much in that painting and put as much effort into that. And this was not a high-level honor student or anything like that as the people that were doing the writing. So she didn't get to do the writing skills, but she still got to do the teamwork skills, the collaborative skills. She communicated in a different way. She used her creativity. Same thing with a student that did poetry. So you can find ways to do even writing projects. In grad school, all of us have written papers as a team. You could find ways to do that as well. So you could always find ways to do more group work, get more social emotional learning out of it.
Perfect. Perfect. And I'm hoping that that continuum will serve as a guide. It is a framework. That's what it is. It puts a frame around the skills that you expect kids to know, understand, and do in the area of social emotional learning or career readiness. Does anybody else have something they would like to share? Okay, we're getting close to lunch. So, are these an add-on? No. These skills are essential. Kids learn either good ways to respond to stimulus and to an environment, or they learn not so great ways. And they learn how to cope or they don't. They learn how to collaborate or they don't. They learn how to be flexible or they don't. And the days of just thinking of content knowledge are gone. They've been gone for a long time. And I think what PDE did with revising their expectations for what kids need to be able to know and do for accountability shows that. You know, we have a governor who embraces the fact that he wants our kids to be able to hold a job, have pride in what they do. I don't care, you know, what party you belong to. This is not party stuff. This is just a philosophy that I believe is important, and so does PDE. And I know that all of you got into education to work with kids and move them forward. We all did. Mary.
Something our group was talking about.
Something our group was talking about that I think relates to this table over here in sense of integration is just wrapping the mind around that this is not state-approved standards. And so this is, right, tell me if I'm representing this correctly. And so, you know, they see the link with Pennsylvania Career Ready. Makes great sense. But I think it taps into what you were saying, that how do they go back into the school and make sure that this is integrated, because it goes back to who holds the keys and things like that. But if you could speak to that, Pam, I mean, everybody knows these are not standards per se, right, but in the sense of someone not being the Lone Ranger that goes back in that's passionate right about this right and sees this. Am I representing that correctly? Do you guys from the schools want to speak to that?
And the updated framework that our district uses to evaluate their teachers is the Danielson Framework, and it was updated, and it does reflect not all of, but there are some pieces that are reflected in that framework. So if an administrator was coming in,
right,
but I don't think that was shared out completely, but there are some of these skills are embedded in that absolutely evaluation process.
So I think one of the things that I would, you know, what ends up happening in schools is when something is really good, someone will work with it and then someone will say, where'd you get that? You know, I remember doing that and I actually had a teacher that wouldn't share with me. But I think because we know that Danielson is closely aligned to this framework, that when you start your lesson planning, you just see where you can embed it. You don't have to convince anybody to do anything, because PDE will take care of that over time. What you're going to end up seeing, right now what's happened is you've got Future Ready PA over here, which is all career exploration, right? And then you have Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills over here, which are those employability soft skills, right? So purposely, PDE has kept them separate right now because there was so much to think about with, how do we get kids exposed to careers? How do we collect that evidence? Did anybody need one more continuum to look at that time? No. But what we've done, I'm working with Laura Frederici. She's the person who's working in the area of career development at PDE, so with the Future Ready piece. And what we've done is we have created activities that kids will be able to do at every grade level that will help fulfill the career ready skills and the future ready piece as well. But right now they're separate, and they're separate for a purpose. Just too much information at one time. Okay. Yes? Question? Okay. Yes? Yes? That's okay. You're good.
So, get easier microphones next time. Still not. Sorry.
I'm not sure if I'm
No.
being...
Just talk to my jacket.
I'm not really sure if I'm correct in what I'm about to say, but it's just something that we utilize in order to incorporate a lot of this career stuff into our school district. We looked at what meets the standards of certain subject areas. Like for social studies, for example, the entrepreneurship is a standard. So we have a 2-week entrepreneurship class that goes in there that meets career. Family and consumer science, they do a bunch of lessons on career with resume writing and all that kind of stuff. So like this stuff all does link into each other. You don't really need to...
It's interrelated.
Yeah,
it really is.
it does.
I think maybe you just need to think a little more globally when you're planning lessons, or if you're going in to work with kids in the area of career ready. Just think a little more globally, look at your continuum. And over time, the hope for PD is that folks that are having a team meeting will look at their continuums, talk about the lessons, because usually like kindergarten, they sometimes do themes, right? Not just kindergarten, but then you plan, you just embed which one of these skills will embed in here.
And,
right?
and embedding occurs when you allow for collaboration. So if there was more time in education for collaboration, the social studies and guidance counselor and English teacher would know about their various standards.
You are preaching to the choir.
So, yeah.
So, on that one, Okay, so I think that's my presentation today. Are there any questions? Okay. So this is where I live. This is how you can hunt me down. Some of you had questions about Future Ready that I can't answer because that's not my wheelhouse. But Laura Frederici at PDE, that is her wheelhouse. That's what she does. So if you have questions about Future Ready, I can refer you to her. I just want to thank you all for your attention today, your participation, and my hope for you is that you think of just a little more deeply about these career-ready skills. Look for the toolkit. There's some pretty cool stuff in it coming, and hopefully it'll be released at the end of the month. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.